For centuries, we've been told what is pure and what is sinful, what is allowed and what is forbidden. Somewhere along the way, we severed the human from the divine. We silenced intuition, shamed the sacred, and buried ancient wisdom. But here, we remember. Welcome to the Forbidden Fruit Podcast, an exploration of the mystical, the intuitive, the cosmic forces that weave our existence. This is a soulful sanctuary where we embrace the strange and unusual and use it as fuel to reclaim the magic, restore the sacred, and discover ultimate truth. Come and share your stories in a space where fierce hearts and fantastical gifts are not only welcomed, but needed. So take a bite. You were never meant to be forbidden. So welcome, Catherine. So happy to have you back on the Forbidden Fruit Podcast.
Yeah.
And we were just chatting a little bit before we started the recording about what's going on and some of the energies. It's the time of year where we're feeling very busy and rushed and hustle bustle kind of energy, but also feeling like, at least for me, I feel like nothing's really happening. Like I feel this desire to go inward and just cocoon and kind of hide from the world. But I also really want to be with others and in community. And um, it's this weird dynamic right now. And something that's been coming up for me, I wanted to get your perspective on this. The last few days, I've been moving through these waves of just a lot of grief and sadness and not really having a reason for it, right? I just allow the feeling to come up and like flow through. And then I ask questions, where is this coming from? Do I even need to know? Sometimes I just need to feel it. And one of the things that's showing up is that I feel like I'm missing a piece of myself. And I've been doing this really deep work around divine embodiment. And what does that mean? To be divinely human, right? Dissolving these paradigms of divinity and sacredness and even God, the God self, being separate from our human experience. And we've talked about this in some of the other episodes where we've had these experiences where we connect with others or we see the God in others, and we get to fully be seen and experienced within ourselves and with these others. I've just been sitting in that place of recognizing that I miss the me that shows up when I'm in that space of feeling fully seen and heard and received and understood. Like my God spark is met by another's pure God spark. And it's not that I'm not always fully myself. I am as much as I can be. But in society, in our human lives, we can't always be fully ourselves. We have masks we wear, we have hats we wear, and some of those things are necessary for our survival, right? So
Mhm.
I've been playing in this dance of knowing deeper and deeper levels of myself and wanting to be that energy, that pure essence embodied all the time and have this connectedness to it no matter where I show up in life. And then realizing that I'm not always in that space and then having grief. So that's been
Uh-huh.
a fun little mind dance I've been doing. What do you think?
Okay. That is a really interesting dance, that ebb and that flow, and that time frame where you're sitting in that pause, whether you just came from a space of expansiveness or that's where you're heading. And that moment, that time to integrate the feelings and the thoughts and the experiences that you had so that you have that clarity to move forward. And it's interesting because so I've been kind of thinking about, how have I been? Like how in that space of reflection and that space of where are we going from here? And seeing all kinds of different opportunities and different possibilities, but which one is right for me? And um, so I remember And it kind of brings up this feeling of this flow of where is life taking me? Where am I headed? And in that pause, that space to kind of feel where you're at and how you connect to the world and how you show up and how you be. Um, it's brought up all these remembrances for me. I have been an entrepreneur for almost 20 years, doing various different things, similar concepts, but very different ways of being. Um, and so I was kind of thinking, like, what does that all mean? Like, where do we go from here? Like, what is the purpose of it all? And so just kind of going with that flow and that thought process. Um, so for me, I started out as a birth doula because that was what was coming up for me in my life at that time. And through that process, um, you realize you create out of necessity whatever is in that moment, in that space for you. And where do you feel the most called to move forward? So when you sit there in that space of potential, in that space of opportunity, like it's really easy to sit in your comfort zone. But when you sit in your comfort zone, you're staying safe, you're staying yourself, you're staying who you are, which is actually a good place because that's how you learn who you are and what you want in life. It's that nurturing, that beginning, that learning to embody who you are by finding yourself. And when you start taking those steps of nurturing yourself, you could think about the idea of birth. When you're going through that pregnancy stage, that nurturing, that growth, that becoming something new, everybody goes through that, whether or not it's related to having a kid or not, because you're going through those different versions of yourself. You're growing this new possibility, this new opportunity, whether it's a business or a family or a relationship of any kind. There's so many different, endless possibilities of what you could birth within yourself. And even if it is just a new version of who you are and how you connect to the world, because connection is the key to all of this, finding that connection, finding that piece where you fit in. And I remember when I was starting out, one of the things that I really thought about was just like, where do I fit in? What am I supposed to do? And it wasn't really about doing anything. It was about who I wanted to embody, who I wanted to show up as, how I wanted the world to see me. And that's changed so many times. I can't count how many times throughout the years.
Yeah. Mm.
And it's such a funny, interesting thing because as you have these different versions of yourself, then you show up differently and people have those perceptions of who you are. And that's fine. But each version is totally different. Like every person that sees you sees a different piece of you. It was really funny. I was driving to an event this weekend and my daughter was talking to my son and she's 7 and he's almost 10. And she she was talking about my son's upcoming birthday. And one of his friends apparently thinks I'm a really good cook. Like, I would beg to differ. However, I just kind of listened as I was driving.
Aw.
It was so funny because um, they were saying how my daughter was saying how I was this great baker, and it took me off guard. I'm like, really? I don't think so. But I just sat and I listened as I was driving on the highway, and it was like, huh, that is her perspective of who I am. That's the version of her of me that she sees. And it's totally fine. I mean, yes, I do bake things, but I wouldn't say they're great. But apparently she thinks in her 7-year-old version of life that I'm some sort of professional baker. Now, to me, I just started laughing because that was so funny to me. Because I would never in a million years say that's who I am. But that was how she saw me. And I realized it didn't matter what it was, but she had this idea of who I was, and that was okay. And so putting all those, like everybody has ideas of who you are, and they're all valid, and they're fine, and who that is and how that shows up. But when you put yourself out there and you try something and you do something new, something that's out of your comfort zone, that's where that space of creativity comes. And that opens up those opportunities for you to be in this flow. And, so I remember over the years, I'm going to talk a lot because a lot of things came to me recently. I remember over the years, as I, moved past the point in my life where I was a doula, and then I started creating things. So my business kind of morphed into this reusable pad and cloth diaper company. And I remember thinking at the time, like, okay, so I've invented this new version of a diaper and I've invented this version of a feminine care product. And now what? I was like, well, I did that. I'm done. I have no more ideas. And it was so interesting because that was just another form of me kind of sitting back and taking that space and allowing the process to integrate the experiences I was having. And that where do you go from here? That was me sitting in my comfort zone because I had done whatever this was. I had brought it to this version of me. And then when I decided to put myself out there and step out of my comfort zone, that was when I started to have that space of growth, that opportunity that started to show up. And over the years, it has evolved so many different times. And it does for everyone, whether it's you working in a job and that's how you show up, and different opportunities come to you when you put yourself out there. It's those moments and that movement that you do within yourself. You work on yourself, you try to better yourself, become a better version of who you started out as. And that gives you that momentum. So that movement, when you try something new, when you allow that space, allow that time for you to integrate, and then you flow into that movement, that's where that growth and that opportunity just presents itself. And it's funny that we're having this conversation today because I think you're right where I've been at recently. That space of like, okay, there's all these things I have to do, but what do I really want to do? Where do I want to go from here? And that's really just allowed me that space to just kind of ponder. And that pondering really creates that opening of, okay, I'm setting that intention. Show me what's next. And that's when those downloads of information come into your awareness, and you can decide whether or not to take a step forward. And it's really interesting because, so feeling into that creative flow, like when you feel outside of it, you feel that lack, that disconnection. But when you really just set that intention to step outside of that, you get into this idea of connecting to the hive or the collective. And the feeling of the hive, you think of a beehive, there's all these different components to it. And there's all these individuals working together for a common goal. And that common goal is the flow of honey and the flow of life and renewal and connection. Because without one piece, then something's missing. And when you sit in that space of flow and that allowing and just connecting to the feeling of being part of the hive of all that is, then all of a sudden, all these different ideas pop into your awareness and understanding. And you really feel that space of aliveness of who you are. And you really get that opportunity to show up, however that works for you. And it's just a very interesting space.
Yeah, I love all of that. I'm in this space of, it sounds like for you, things just come through you. Like they get downloaded and then you're guided from that internal compass. And I have that as well. But there's something in me right now that's recognizing that I'm an external processor and that I have this way of being inspired into that creative channel by my environment, by the people around me. I get this creative muse energy through my relationships, through my interactions with others. And for so much of my life, right, you're talking about these phases that we go through. Oh my gosh, yes. So much of my life, I just thought I had to do everything by myself, that if anything was going to get done, it was up to me. I had this hyper independence as a form of survival because very early in my childhood, I learned that I'm too much, too strange, too weird, too sensitive, too. Just put something there. And I learned that other people didn't understand me and didn't really want to be around me because it made them really uncomfortable. It would shake up their version of reality. It made them feel unstable. And I learned to find the people that could be weird with me. And we would have some fun and we would talk about the nature of the universe. I mean, I remember going into conversations about quantum physics with my two best girlfriends in eighth grade in her kitchen at 2 in the morning, talking to her dad, who was a professor at the university. And we were listening to NPR and we're talking about quantum physics. And I'm like 13. Okay. So I don't think that a lot of 13-year-old girls were having that experience. But that was very normal for me. And then we would talk about ghosts and extrasensory perception and how I could see colors around people's bodies or shoot energy out of my hands, and it would make someone feel better, right? Little weird things that to me, I knew were not normal for most people, but were normal for me. And so I had this place of find the people that can at least relate to you a little bit. Find the people that think you're weird is fun and want to encourage it. Okay, cool. So I found those people here and there, but it was very hit or miss throughout my life. So in general, especially as I moved into adulthood, I've been running my own business since I was 19, over 22 years as an entrepreneur. And I don't think I could ever work for someone else. I mean, I've been told I'm a little bit bossy. Um, so I like to delegate. I like to have the vision and I like to have people help me create the vision. And I like that idea of collaboration and working on something together. That you said, the beehive, right? We all have our part and we're working towards a common goal. And I just really respond well in those spaces, usually. And right now I'm in a place where I feel this huge expansive energy, right? I feel like there's something new coming and it's coming very fast. And I'm getting these little breadcrumbs that I learned to follow. And I'm getting these moments of insight about what it could potentially be should I choose it, right? I hear in the back of my mind, here is your mission, should you choose to accept it, right? And so that's definitely happening for me too. And my awareness is coming from this place of it doesn't come through me. It comes, it doesn't come through me from this like idea that I then go out and create. I have lots of ideas. I'm very creative, but every single one of my creative ideas comes from a conversation, a moment at the grocery store, something I see on social media, from one line of a silly meme. I can find a crack, I can find an opening to respond to. And then that takes me into my creative current. And so it's this really interesting awareness of myself and what that means as far as my self care and what I need to be my best version of myself. And so I'm in this place of understanding how important it is to surround myself and to show up within myself for others in that place of really honoring our similarities and our differences. And can we find a current to build something new together? What is that creative current in a collaborative space, in a community space, in a space where we get to be exponential and synergistic? I'm being called to that. And as I'm being called to that, not only to create it, to be a part of it, right? Something much grander than I can imagine. I'm having some trepidation and some grief and some fear coming up around, well, I've tried this many times before. I felt this creative energy, this exponential current many times before. And I end up turning into the demon someone has to vanquish or the witch they have to burn. And I'm just so done with that paradigm and those fears, right? And so I'm in this in between place of wondering and feeling and wanting to have the space where we really get to grow and thrive in this garden of life where it can be loving and supportive. And even when it's difficult, we can work through it from a place of respect and compassion. And I feel it in my bones that it's like, it's right here. It's in my fingertips. It is flowing through me. Like I am capable of doing that and showing up in that way. And I guess I'm putting out that call, right? Where are those that can also meet me in that place? And we can grow together and it can be fun. I don't think life is supposed to be this series of constant lessons and tests and get to the next level and constant pushing and pulling and fighting our way out of a cage. I feel like life is here to just be experienced. And I'm good with that. But I'm realizing that I've been feeling very lonely. And maybe that's partly why I wanted to do this podcast. It's like I don't want to do this alone. And I know that I'm not. Like I know in spirit I'm not alone. I know there's amazing people around me, but I feel like it's time to build this tsunami. Not just a couple little sparks of light lighting up like a little firework here and there, but a tsunami of evolving awareness and deeper connection, not only to ourselves, but to each other and to our true nature as creators. And yeah, it's bringing up all of these things, those places of all the roles I've played, all the masks I've worn, and all of them were authentic and true, like you're saying, right? I mean, being a wife and a mother and a business owner, and one business was a photography business and a skincare business, and then I went into being an energy healer, and then I mean, I dedicated a whole year where spirit wouldn't let me do any kind of energy healing. I had to do mediumship and talk to spirits that had crossed over, and I really resisted that. And then I had to learn all these other things in the spiritual sphere. But I mean, even when I was in elementary school and junior high and high school, I was studying the paranormal, the supernatural. I told the high school career counselor that I wanted to be a paranormal psychologist. And they were like, what is that? I'm like, well, it's a thing. It's in these books I'm reading. So it's a thing. You just don't know what it is. So they just wrote down psychologist. I'm like, no, you're missing the cool part. You're missing the magic and the weird and the fun. So I feel like that's always my thread, right? The weird, the strange, the fantastical. I follow that. And then also recognizing that there's something even deeper, which is the healing and the restoring the balance. Um, I saw a post from one of my colleagues today on her social media, and it just touched my heart so deeply. And it reminded me of why I'm on this path and why I'm doing what I'm doing and why I want this tsunami of consciousness to wash across the globe, right? She was talking about how she has been given the opportunity to do some trauma informed yoga therapy for parents whose children have been killed. And she wrote this long story about it and the synchronicities of how this came to her, how she was referred to this opportunity. It was so synchronistic. And it was this incredible example of how all these things that happen, horrific things that happen in our lives, depending on our time and our place and our perspective. They come back around in another way. Things that are such great loss and grief can come around as a PowerPoint of healing and transformation. And because of the experiences she and her family have been through, she herself almost became a child that was murdered. Because of these experiences, she now gets the opportunity to help those that are struggling in that same space. And sorry, I'm getting emotional. No, I'm not sorry. I'm getting emotional. um, to realize that every single experience in our lives, it's it's guiding us not only for our own growth, but so that we can get out there and be a heart or a helping hand to someone else. And we may never know how we're even doing that. Or we may know, we may be a teacher or a leader in some field based on the experiences we've had. So it makes me chuckle when you're sharing, I was having children and I was a doula. And so, of course, I did these businesses that had to do with childbirth and, renewable diapers and these things, of course, because that was your life. And so I'm sitting in that place as well, looking at all the things I've experienced and how it has informed my ability to show up and be a healer or be a leader or be a teacher in some of those spaces because I've lived it. So, so deep.
Absolutely. I mean, really, life is the most perfect example of how you learn and you grow. And, people always say, "Oh, what's your degree? What's your training in this?" That's like, "Oh, you have no idea. No idea." Because
School of
because
life, my friend.
exactly, because what life teaches you, it is something so much deeper than I mean, go for it, get whatever degree you want. But life teaches you so perfectly exactly what you are meant to know, and that gives you the experience. Because with my kids with special needs, we've had so many therapists over the years, different specialists, etc. And it's so funny. I laugh when I meet a provider that wants to tell me how to take care of my children. First question I ask, do you have any kids? Because if you're going to tell me what you've learned in a book, I've got it already. I already know it. And I'm not being like cocky and not saying I know everything, but just I can read the book too. I can go through whatever training and experience and degree that whatever it is. But if you haven't lived it, you don't have a child. You don't know what it's like to go through the difficulty of, you have this newborn, for instance, and they send you home from the hospital, and your first night home, you're like, what did I get myself into? There's no manual, no book will tell me what the frick do I do?
Right?
I
Oh.
remember when, so fifth, he was born at 32 weeks and he came home from the NICU. And I remember the first night home, um, he was feeding from a bottle at that point still, and I warmed it up too much. And it didn't like burn him, but it just changed the breast milk just enough that he spit it up within a few minutes. And my first thought was, did I just fuck him up? Like, of course, I had had children. I know it's okay, baby, spit up. But he was so fragile. He was so little. And it was like, there was no manual that could tell me, no book I could read that could tell me, oh, he's just fine. It'll be okay. Give him a few minutes and you can feed him again. Like I knew that in my head, but if I hadn't already had children, I would have completely freaked out and totally created all these stories and beliefs in my head about what was going to happen because, he spit up. Yes, I've had kids spit up a lot. So for me, it was a very different experience because I had been there. But if I had read that in a book or gone through some degree process to get that information, and I would be talking to a new parent saying, oh no, it's just fine. That parent would just laugh me out the door. Believe me, I've been there. It's all okay. But once you feel it in your heart and you see it and you go through it, being able to teach someone that you don't have all the answers. Nobody has all the answers. I don't care how many degrees you have, how much experience that you have from a book learning or training or whatever. If you haven't lived something, then don't tell me what to do because you don't know. Because there's a difference between knowledge and wisdom. And feeling that within your heart, like you have like you can be an expert in anything if you have gone through it and you have taken that in within you and then you share that with the world. That's your expertise. And everyone has their own version of that. You can be an expert in whatever you want. If it calls you and if it livens you up and it awakens something within you, if you have experience with something, it's worth sharing. And that's where stepping out of your comfort zone. Sure, it's great to just say, oh, I don't have time for this. I can't do this, whatever. All these excuses you can put for yourself. But really, deep down, that's your medicine, your history, and your experience that you can share with the world and allow others to learn from that in a way that no book or no training or no degree can ever show you.
Well, it's a transmission of energy, right? So I think about this a lot. Um, like, okay, the meaning of life. And I have a couple of clients that are very engineering and scholarly, and they understand things in black and white frameworks. And I love them. I love taking them down the rabbit hole and getting them to open their minds just a little bit to the possibilities of something else they never thought of before. Right. It tickles me. I love it. And so I was just having this conversation about knowledge and wisdom and applying it to why we exist, right? She was asking me, well, I don't understand. What's the point of all the horrible things that happen? I don't understand why these things have to happen. And she was sharing how she's had, some really tough things in her life, but nowhere near some of the things that others have experienced, right? She feels almost guilt because she's had, in her mind, a blessed life when she sees others struggling so much. And so I was sharing with her that all of us come from creation. All of us, right? We're all strands in the tapestry. And if you pull out one strand, you have a hole. So we're all necessary for the tapestry to be complete. And so we come from creation. We are creation. And we are learning as aspects of creation how to create more creation. And she kept asking, well, why? I said, well, because how can you create a universe if you've never experienced it? You can know it. Creation as an energy consciousness knows what a tree is, knows what a sun is, knows what touch is, hot, cold, light, dark, all those things. They know the consciousness of creation knows all that is. But the consciousness of creation wants to experience all that is because that experience is what is required to create something new and to actually relate to the thing that you know exists or the possibility of something brand new existing. How can you know without experience? Right? So it's like you said, it's the book learning or it's the experiencing. And we can take this at the human level. How am I to function as a brand new parent? How do we go through this dance of surrender and trust and also somehow have confidence that nobody told us how to do anything? And somehow we're supposed to know how to keep this little tiny fragile being alive. I don't even know how that thing grew in me, even though science can tell me, right? It's a miracle that that being exists, that I exist. And yet there's a blueprint within us already downloaded with all the knowledge that we need. And if there's knowledge we need that we don't seem to be able to access, community, connection, talking with others that have been there, done that. like you just said,
Mm-hmm.
right? Not somebody that's read it in a book, but has got their hands dirty, knows what it's like to have the experience.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. Like we can take that framework of knowledge and wisdom and put that into any part of life and give it meaning. Anyway.
Mm-hmm. And it's so interesting because so much of life is do this one thing or do this other thing as though they're disconnected things. But it's all part of this beautiful flow. And it's not about, like, you look at the neurons in a brain and you have these different lobes, and none of them matter. None of them work unless you have connection, unless they work together in this beautiful dance to create something bigger. Because you have these lobes, you have these sections of your brain that do really miraculous things, but separate, they're worthless. They can't function. But when you create that connection, you develop the relationships to each of these different parts of your brain. All of a sudden, you have this amazing concept of a human. And when you're given that divine blueprint of who you are, all you have to do is allow the connections to happen and allow that to awaken within you. And you develop those relationships. That's where the meaning is behind everything. When you look at the microcosm within you and you compare that to the macrocosm of your reality and all of it, of what is, and you see the relationship, what's going on outside of you in the world, the turmoil, the chaos, the confusion is what some people see. But then also others see the beauty, they see the connection, they see the momentum and the ascension that is occurring. It's all about your perspective and your relationship to what's happening. And once you realize and you kind of take that step back and you pause, which is where that integration time, that cocoon feeling that you have, when you allow that to just kind of sink in and you decide where do you fit into this place in this moment, because it's not ever going to be the same. There's never going to be a moment exactly like this, an opportunity exactly the same as this. And you can decide, do you want to take it? Do you not want to take it? How do you feel about it? When you're presented with an opportunity, something that you've been waiting for years, something that you've been calling in and really kind of sitting and nurturing within yourself of like, I want to do this. This is what I feel my calling is. It's so funny because as soon as you get a potential of an offer of it, then you're like, wait a second, do I even want this anymore? You can feel in that, you feel, and you kind of go through this process of grieving, the grieving of the way that you used to be. And once you can kind of integrate and process that, then you are able to hold space for yourself through this act of self-care, of taking care of yourself and finding how do you relate to this new version now and where do you want to go from here. And that's when that space of potential opens up in that momentum, because you're moving the energy out from you. You're going through the grieving process. You're allowing the guilt and the fear and the shame and the excitement and the beauty and the potential to all flow through you without shutting one out, saying, oh, I'm not going to feel guilty about this because someone else doesn't get this opportunity. It's not about that. Everyone has the opportunity that's perfect for them. And whatever that is exactly where they're supposed to be. Because what I find is that people, like you were saying, that it's hard to find your tribe. It's hard to find people that are like minded, that want to be open, that want to collaborate, that want to share and create new worlds and new things and new ways of being. And I think deep down, we all want that because that's that moment, that space of creation. But then you have all these different experiences through life that shut that down and that push that away and that close that off. And when you take that time for self care, to work through and to process and to integrate, which is something that is so foreign to most people, that idea that you need to actually like take time for yourself and to sit with yourself I know, right? Everyone's just like, go, 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 do this,
That's
do
not
this.
productive.
Exactly. But in reality, it is the most productive thing that you can do because when you're born into this realm, into this reality, you come with that spark of creator within you. Everyone does. And life has its way of closing those doors and shutting those things in your perception. Not for real, because you always have potential, but giving you these ideas, these beliefs that you can't do this, you can't be this, you can't do whatever because of your experiences. And because you've had this really hard childhood or this whatever, pick your story of what that looks like for you. When you actually take time to integrate these experiences and to clear them, whether it's you do this independently or you have help, whatever's right for you. But when you clear this, then you realize that you've actually had this within you the whole time. What you want is connection. What you want is to find those that are like you, that you can collaborate with to grow and to become so much more. Because on an individual level, yes, you can create beautiful, beautiful things that are so meaningful, that have so much of an effect on others and yourself. But when you take and you work with someone to do that, it's like the idea of, if you're trying to go through something like you're trying to lose weight or get healthy or whatever, eat better, we all have all things we want to improve. If you have an accountability partner, you're going to make such a difference most of the time because you've got someone there that says, hey, it's okay. Let's try it again with whatever comes up. If you do that for yourself, if you show up for yourself in that same way, say, all right, we had a tough time. We had a tough experience. We fell off whatever our plan was. If you have that gumption within yourself to say, I got this, I'm going to try again. I'm going to take that next step. Yes, I totally screwed up, took all these different deviant side pathways, but now I'm going back to what I want in life. And you do that, you can jump forward on this quantum leap. And when you work with someone else who has even a remotely similar mindset, you then can exponentially, it's not 1 plus 1 or how many are in your group. It's that exponential number of you all feed off of each other and you build that energy to create so much more. And that's where that potential is, that hive mentality, where you're all working for the same common goal. And that's the continuation of something beautiful, something everlasting in unexpected ways, and that space of potential.
Yeah, it's so interesting. I've been sitting with that, like that idea that, okay, this thing that I want, I can make this happen. I can do this. I can see the path. And then there's this other part of me that's like, yeah, but that sounds like a lot of work. This is part of me that's like, I don't really want to have to move or to sell my house. Like there's just a lot of work at the 3D level. And I realized that it's not really, the question isn't, do I want this thing? Do I still want this thing? The question is, can I change my mindset out of the place of this has to be hard and this has to be work? So I've been playing in that, like recognizing, oh my gosh, I'm literally holding myself back from doing the thing that I really want and love because I'm perceiving it as too hard based on the energy level I currently have. Even though the thing that I want, I feel would bring me more energy. It's like it's that pathway to getting there feels like way too much energy expenditure that I don't have. So I've been sitting in that place of like, okay, where is my energy actually being utilized? So even looking at the thing in the external, it's this internal process. And it's been really
Mm-hmm.
fascinating. And looking at where self-sabotage and the little mind gremlins and all those things that we all have, right? It can't be just me, right? All the things that come up. And it's so cool because when I work with clients, I can see their self-sabotaging patterns and their little mind gremlins like clear as day, right? I can just see it. When it comes to me, it takes me a
Oh
little
yeah.
longer, okay? But I'm always looking, right? And I'm open to what is this thing that's holding me back within me? What is the story that I'm creating? And how do I take the reins back and create the story I actually want to create? And so it's this interesting dance, right? Coming back to that same theme. Who am I? What do I want to be? What can I create? And can I trust that there's others out there that would join me and I could join them and it would be reciprocal and empowering for all parties? That it doesn't have to be another massive life lesson through some kind of traumatic initiation. Because I don't believe that we have to learn through pain all the time. I think sometimes it's necessary. And I also think that we can learn through pleasure and we can learn through joy. And that circles back to that feeling that I've been having, grieving around recognizing that feeling in myself that I know so well. It's like that creative flow, that divine spark that is so giddy and playful and fun and comes out when I am in relation with those in highest resonance with me. And I feel like I've been walking through the barren desert for a very long time. And I'm ready to actually open my perspective and my heart and my awareness to those connections again, instead of feeling like either one, they don't exist, or two, if they do exist, they're going to only exist for a period of time and then they're going to try to obliterate me. Like, I feel like I'm leaving that story in the desert. And I'm also recognizing that who cares? It's going to happen. Whatever's going to happen, whatever's meant for me will be, whatever isn't will fall away. And even if it hurts, and even if it sucks, even if I feel this energy of destruction, so what? Like, that's creation. That's part of it. And I don't have to protect myself from anything. And that's a interesting place to be, because there's that part of me that's like, well, hold on a minute, right? The ego or the inner child that's like, you better protect me, right? But recognizing that when I'm really in my center, when I'm in that creative spark of myself that I know exists because of relations that I've had with others, or not relations, but you know what I mean, that
Mhm.
energy, connection. And so it's just like it's glaring me in the face right now. This true face of who I am and how I have buried her. And I thought that she was gone and that she couldn't come back. And she's like right in my face, screaming at me to wake up and pay attention. That whatever this next level is requires all of me, not just the parts that are comfortable, not just the parts that think they need healing, all of me. And that is terrifying and also exhilarating. And it's
Mhm.
good. And I love it. And I want it. So, and
And
it doesn't have to be hard.
it doesn't have to be hard. So it's all in the space of allowing. Now I look at through my years of experience doing working with reusable products. I've and looking at how things are created and how they're made and how they're put together. And I look at how does that relate to nature? Because as we are beings of creation, there's no space that we can go that's separate from nature. We think we're in our homes, we're separate. No, this is all a part of nature. What would it look like in 30 years, 50 years if no one took care of it? Even if people did take care of it, what would it look like? All of it returns to earth. Now, there is this beautiful cycle of life. And when a tree dies, when a plant dies, an animal, anything, any piece of nature dies, there is always something that grows and gets nurtured because of it. Every single thing on the planet is perfectly recycled in its own perfect time. Through the dying of whatever it was, a new potential gets awakened. And that potential is a new version of that. That energy isn't lost. You can't kill energy. It doesn't ever stop. It just morphs and it unfolds into this new version of what it's becoming. And that's exactly what this whole ascension process does. And it's this opportunity that, from what I do in the coaching and the healing work that I do, I see all of this potential. Because when I was younger, I grew up without the support system that I needed. My parents were fine for a regular child, but that wasn't me, because I had all of these different, we'll say, paranormal experiences, these extra understandings of the world that a lot of children don't have. But wait, do they not have them? See, because these are the ponderings that I've done over the years. Like, I think and I believe that every child is born with this beautiful creative spark of creation, because that is who we are, which means that every child has these awarenesses and understandings. And it's the beliefs and conditionings over the years and these life experiences that you have that shut it down and that turn you into this 3D being. You don't start that way. You start as this star being of creation, this miracle that you are, that mothers feel for their children, fathers too, but it's different for the mother, because you grew this baby, you grew this being of light within you, and you brought it into this world. And coming from that space of, you created something so perfect, and then life changes it. Life has its effect on things. What if you could create a space or create a process of allowing and nurturing that child to continue to be open instead of shutting it down through life's conditionings? What if you could create that space where this next generation of beings, of children, as they grow up, they don't turn their gifts off. They don't get told that they're wrong or they're bad or strange or crazy. What if the new version, the ascended version of us, starts out with these children that don't have these things shut down for them? So then in my ponderings, well, how do you do that? How do some small task, right? You create a nurturing space for them and encourage them to be an individual. You help them process and integrate when things are happening. As soon as you're aware that they're happening, you help them to work through, and you emphasize the importance of self-care and just being, not doing, like being part of the factory machine, but being, and just being present and allowing, encouraging them to be an individual, but also a piece of the collective. And encouraging and nurturing the relationships allows that space for the beliefs and the individual perspectives that life gives you to heal and to grow, so that the next generation that comes here is so much better than we had it. They've got it so much easier when you take those certain steps to make it so the children can be connected, so that they don't feel the need as a protective mechanism that their ego says we need to shut down our gifts. Can you imagine a generation of children that don't feel a disconnect from creation?
Yeah, I think that that's a huge part of how we evolve as a humanity. And there are people that are going to work directly with the children. You're one of them, right? And that is such a powerful calling. And I know just from the little bit of work with children that I've done and my own children, it's that's my, I guess for me, my children are the part of the legacy of love that I want to leave. And I have a goal of leaving this world a better place than I found it, right? For those that are yet to come. And I take that very seriously. I'm curious what it would be like if all the adults that are currently here could remember their own pure essence enough to the point where they recognize it in the children. So not only are they connected within themselves, but they see it in the children, and in that way don't shut it down. It has to go both ways because we're in that bridging, we're in that space between, right? You were talking about at the beginning. It's a fascinating process, but it is a process. Step by step, line by line, light by light. Sometimes I wish we could just flip a light switch and it would just be easy and simple, and everybody's just loving each other, singing kumbaya, talking to the trees, chanting by the fires. All the water's clean, all the air's clean, all the animals are taken care of. It's just that's not nature, right? I love that you said that we're all connected to nature always. Nature is raw and wild and untamed. If we didn't have street sweepers literally every single night when everybody's sleeping, most people are sleeping, give it a day and the highways would be so cluttered that nobody could drive, right? We have to constantly push back against nature to have the kind of society that we've created that we think is normal, that we think is civilized. And even in that, we are literally fighting against our own innate, wild, raw, untamed nature, our own creative life force that wants to come out, wants to play, wants to create, wants to make a mess, wants to make some chaos, and see what happens. As a society, humanity is constantly fighting against itself just because we're constantly fighting against nature. So, how can we possibly embrace our own nature when we don't embrace the nature of the world that we live in? So there's some really deep questions there. And I think there are children being born now, and even like my kids' generation, I have kids from 19, 16, 13, right? They're all teenagers right now. And these kids, all three of them, are very gifted in their own ways. They're neurodivergent, all three of them. I guess you'd say you could call it special needs as well. And even with them, with me as one of their parents, I see how they shut down their spark, their light, so much of the time, how they allow distortion and distraction through social media and technology and video games and those things that numb them from actually going out and breathing fresh air and climbing a tree and falling and scraping their knee, you know? And I do my best to find a balance there to encourage them to engage with their true nature and also allow them to be a part of Western society. And I don't know what's right or wrong in that, but they have their own lives to live. I can only guide. And so knowing that we're at this place of bridging, seeing what's happening with the kids that are about to be adults, how do we create this shift where it's not like ripping a tree out by the roots and everybody dies? How do we create this shift from that internal space of here's the spark, here's the joy, here's the belief, that you can do anything, what is it that you love to do? And that's across the board for all ages. For me, that's like the point of convergence, right? That's where we start the bridge. Just even being able to ask the question. And even being able to ask the question, recognizing that it comes from a place of privilege. The fact that I can even ask the question, what would I like to create? What am I truly passionate about? Means that most of my basic survival needs are met. Food, water, shelter, community. Working on some deeper aspects of that. But there are entire populations on the planet that don't have the luxury, the privilege of even asking, what can I create? What am I truly passionate about? Because they're fighting to survive to the next day. So how do we create this shift on a global scale? That's the questions that I'm sitting with right now. And I don't feel like I have to know the answer. But just sitting in that space of recognizing who I am and where I'm at and what do I want to put out in the world that can really be of service? And also something that just lights me up, right? And in that space, that's the creative flow. And in that space, we can find the answers to all of these questions. What do you think is the bridge? What is that piece that you would like to offer to the world to help the consciousness evolve, to help the children? Like, what is that piece? Is it just the work that you're doing with clients, right? Like, that's such powerful work.
Well, a piece of it is the work that I do with clients, but it's also this understanding and this awareness of the ripple effect. Is that understanding that when someone communicates with you, it's they're seeking a connection. They're seeking something deeper and realizing and taking that time. I mean, everything you do makes so much of a difference the more that you work on yourself and you become present in the moment. Because if you clear yourself, then you clear out all these filters and beliefs so that you can see what's right before you. So that you can see, oh, wait, your child thinks something totally different of you than you would have ever imagined. And you see that spark in that moment. And you don't shut it down, you actually encourage it. You allow them to show up with their understandings and you help them to be more and you help give them opportunities that you didn't have.
Right. You don't
Every
tell them they're wrong when they think you're a master baker. You receive
exactly.
that, right? Oh, wow. That's amazing that they see you that way.
Mm-hmm.
And you accept that.
And you accept it and you say, isn't that beautiful that that's what they believe? Because if that's what they believe, it's so much better than thinking that you're a horrible parent. Really? Because that's turning that tide all the way, doing a 180, but finding that balance. No, you're not saying, oh my God, I am the most amazing baker ever. No, you're understanding that that's a perspective and you're allowing that to exist and you're nurturing it by allowing them the space to have their peace and have their understanding. And you give gentle nudges throughout your time with your children, which is way more shorter than you realize. You know, going through those experiences, you realize that it accumulates and it builds on itself. So the more that you avail yourself to your children and you share how you're going through things within reason, you make it age appropriate, you make it something that they can understand and they're ready for, but you slowly nurture them. You slowly teach them the next thing, whatever it is that comes up for them, that comes up in this experience that you have, this relationship you have with your children. And you cultivate that and you grow that Just like in a garden, you don't just plant the seed and walk away. You water it, you take care of it, you make sure it gets light, and that you don't have bugs on it and predators eating it, and it's not too cold, not too hot. You do all these things to nurture these plants to grow. And one day, with that promise that they're going to be so much more than they see, there's so much more than this tiny seed that they began as, whatever that looks like. You don't have to know what kind of seed you're planting. You just know that it's going to be good because of how much you relate to it, because of how the care that you give to it. Even if it's a cactus that's once no water, you give it what it needs and you show up for it. You pull the weeds around it, the things that try to encroach its space, and take from it without giving back. And you help it to teach its boundaries and understandings of the world and how it can relate to the world. And by them seeing you take care of yourself and how you relate to your partner, to your family, and to the world around you, they then see, because they're little sponges, children are, and it's beautiful. They are building the framework of what does it mean to be a human because of what you show them. And when you realize that, then that gives you that motivation. It gives you the opportunity for the motivation. Not everyone realizes it or takes the opportunity, but that's fine. But when you move forward and you better yourself, you're actually bettering the next generation as well. Because they see, oh, mom took time to take a nap. Mom took time to herself. She went and did something fun. Whether you do it fun with your children or by yourself, whatever is the perfect dynamic for you, by doing that for you, you're teaching your children, oh yeah, don't forget yourself. Because I feel like the swings of the generations have swung too far at times, because it's not all about the children. Like it very much, not in any aspect saying children are not important. That's the opposite of what I'm saying. They are so important, but they are witnessing what you are teaching them. So if you give all of you to a child, when they become an adult, they have learned from you that you must give all of yourself to that next generation, to the point where you wither away and are nothing and forget who you are. No, it's a beautiful balance. Like you can see the different generations of like the golden children that are now the baby boomer stage, and the Generation X where they were, the latchkey kids where it swung all totally opposite. And then and so on. And you see those swings back and forth when you sit in that balance of, yes, the children are so important, but also the parents that are raising them are so important. And you make that balance, then it's not, oh, they're everything. It's never that. It's all that beautiful space in that middle, that point of creation where you can see that everyone is part of this community. You come together, everyone is important, everyone has a perspective and a say, and you become so much more because you become exponential when you work together instead of just give it all to the children or give it all to this generation or whatever. You come in that space of connection and balance in the present moment.
Yes, I completely agree. Yeah, that's so much of my work is teaching people how to take care of themselves. And I believe that everything that we do for ourselves, whether it's like you were saying, like the clearing of our stories, our beliefs, the stuff that's standing in the way, it can be the energy work, it can be connecting into that passion within you. As you do that, it automatically clears the pathway for your children to do the same. It's like there's a lot of people that come to see me and they're like, well, I have this and this with my kid. How do I help them? How do I fix this? And it's like, well, the answer is always come back to you. You focus on you, the parent, as the adult in any situation. If we can hold the vision of whatever it is we're concerned about, if we can hold the vision of it being happy, healthy, whole, free, that's our superpower. If we keep holding the vision of it not being good enough or being broken or we did something wrong or they're doing something wrong, we're literally putting that energy out there. We are creator beings. We're creating the very thing we are concerned about. So there's a whole that's a whole nother topic that we should get into at another time, how we are creators.
Oh, yes.
Because it's very in depth. It's not like The Secret portrays it. Think a thing and it happens. It's not quite like that. All right.
There's a few more steps.
There's a little more to it. But yeah, that idea of I remember when I first had my first child, I went from being a full-time college student and working 4 jobs to try to put myself through school, right? Because I was on my own. I didn't have parents or family or community. I had to pay all my own bills and take care of myself, and that's how it was. I was one of those latchkey kids. And I wait, I was going somewhere with that. Oh, so when I first had my first child, I literally walked across the stage to get my college diploma, my 4-year degree, 9 months pregnant. 2 weeks later, I had my first child. So there wasn't a lot of transition time between the college, young students to motherhood. And I remember that first year in particular of learning how to be a mom and a wife in a different way. And I chose to be a stay-at-home mom because it seemed ridiculous to pay money for daycare to then go work just to make the money to pay for the daycare. Like daycare is expensive.
Oh, yes.
And my husband had the ability to pay most of the bills. And then I had my photography business on the side. And so I was like, cool, I can do this. And I was adamant for my whole marriage. I was adamant about, date nights once a week. We leave the kid at home. I remember when my first child was about 4 months old, that was the first time we decided to go out for an hour to go have dinner. And I was terrified to leave my child. I was, first time parent, like 22, 23 years old. And that feeling of who am I? Who am I now in this phase of my life? And I had those ups and downs of losing myself to these different roles I was being asked to play. But I always had this spark in me that was like, all of this is important and all of this is valuable, but so am I. So is my adult self. So is my relationship with my partner. That takes priority at times over the child. And it has to, because if it doesn't, I won't have a relationship to come back to. You know what I mean? So like you said, it's finding that balance, and I'm still trying to find the balance, right? I don't know if I'll ever
Oh, it's a
figure that
work
one
in
out.
progress. Everyone is a work in progress. Nobody's got it figured out.
Every time I think I get it figured out, that something changes. And so I'm like, oh, that went out the window. Next. Okay.
Oh, yeah.
So yeah, I love that you share that about balance and how the children are important, but we're also honoring the children that we still are, right? That essence, that core. So thank you so much. This is a beautiful conversation. I
Yeah,
I love
thank
talking with
you.
you. I get all these kinds of new ideas and more things we can talk about. Um, is there anything else you'd like to share before we say goodbye?
And just stay tuned until next time.
Yeah. Awesome. All right. Well, thank you so much, Catherine. I appreciate you more than words can say. And I hope that everyone listening is getting some of this magic and beautiful guidance for them as well. Thank you so much. Until next time.